start.
So the webinar has started.
Yes, ma'am, you can begin.
Okay, so welcome everybody. We're gonna go ahead and start the box for everybody who may not know what OBFA is the Operating Budget Physical Affairs Committee meeting. At this time, as the chair, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And calling the meeting to order, I would like to say hello, everybody. See, it is some of the team. I am Belinda Queen, the chair of the committee, and the District 6 Board of Education representative for Prince George's County. I am honored, and it's my privilege to serve you guys. And I want to thank everybody who's here, who has joined the call, and everyone out there also in media land. The first thing I want to do is to adopt the minutes from our adopt the agenda for today's September the 15th, 2021 meeting. Can I get a motion to accept the agenda for this meeting?
So moved.
Speak. There we go. We got a motion. Can we get a second? He froze up.
Sorry, second.
Okay, second. All right, so we have a first and a second, so all in favor, let's say aye. The agenda has been approved. It's 3 of us, and all 3 of us have voted first, second, and third. So as we move on, we're going to approve the minutes, and all of you should have your minutes by now for the August 11th meeting. So at this time, can I entertain a motion to approve the minutes for August 11th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so very much. With me, the minutes are approved. So at this time, we're going to move straight forward. We're moving right along on this Wednesday afternoon, and we're going to go into public comments. So very important to always hear from our public, and we do have speakers registered. Ms. the speakers on?
Yeah, let me pull over who I see, because I don't see the first. I don't see the first one. I don't see
Ms. Parker or Ms. Rout?
Miss Parker. Miss Parker is there. Miss Rout is there. So I'll pull them up in order. So I'm gonna pull up Miss Parker first, okay?
Okay.
All right, there she is. Hey, Miss Parker.
Hi, Ms. Berkeley. How are you?
Okay, there we go. We got Ms. Dana Parker. Welcome, Ms. Parker. Thank you as always. Being an advocate for Prince George's County Public Schools, you are the first speaker. Whenever you're ready, you can get.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for allowing me to speak and for allowing public comment. I just had 2 kind of major points. I'm going to urge you to go ahead and accept the amendment that was given by Board Member Rahila Ahmed, District 5, in regards to capital budget project requests having a 2.5% cap on contingency funds, a 5% cap on architectural and engineering fees, a 4% cap on CMR general conditions and allocations, a 3% cap on movable equipment, FF&E, as well as a 2% cap on DCP administration expenses. I'm not going to go over the extensive letter that she has submitted with her particular request. What I will say is that what I've heard from the last couple of CIP meetings and board meetings for the past several years is I've heard consistently from the administration or representatives from the administration who deal with the CIP to just let them do their job. And that's essentially what I hear them tell, the school board. But then they come back and tell the school board things like, oh, well, we're $53 million over budget on this project. We're $4 million over on this project. We need a change order for this. We need a change order for that. We need this. We need that. We need extra money for this. We need extra money for that. And essentially, when I looked at it and I went back and asked the state some questions, we're one of the highest districts for change orders, and we spend millions of dollars on projects that we already have. Yes, we are. I saw that brow furrow. Yes, we are. Go back and check for yourself. Yeah, you. What's up? At the end of the day, we are one of the highest districts for change orders, period. And that's not even just from me asking the state, that's from your own testimony in various CIP meetings. That's from your own testimony. from administration. We just had a CIP meeting where you talked about almost $100 million over several different projects. So I don't know what the brow furrow is for. And as a taxpayer, of course, I'm going to be upset that you're $100 million over budget for several projects. And let's be clear, it's not because we don't want projects in schools built. We have consistently come out and said, hey, can you build this? Can you do this? Can you do that? Like, yes, we want schools to be built. We just want you to be fiscally responsible and hold people accountable to the contracts you just signed for us, period. And then don't come back and tell us, let me do my job, but my job is making you guys spend hundreds of millions of dollars over budget. So that's first. Secondly, had to calm down. You on camera, calm down. So secondly, also, I wanted to talk about Shayla Adams Stafford. She did send a request also about the busing situation. And I understand this is a nationwide bus shortage. I understand that. I'm wrapping up real quick. I understand it's a nationwide bus shortage. And I know that PGCPS has done all that it can to get more buses in regards to hiring people. But Shayla Adams Stafford has given a very outlined of questions in regards to making sure that we have more transportation for our students. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We will be addressing that. We already have issues in place and that will be discussed tonight. So thank you so very much. At this time, we're gonna go ahead with Council Member Rout, Bladensburg. Ms. Jocelyn.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I sent a formal letter to all members of the board, and I'm going to, I've since updated my letter. I wrote the correspondence to share concerns regarding transportation for Prince George's County Public School students. I'm not sure if Prince George's County Public School or the board realizes the severity of the issues, but parents and students can no longer just wait for a solution. The time is now for a reasonable, swift, safe solution to the transportation nightmare that has already caused parents a financial burden over the first couple of weeks of school in its FY 21-22 school year. I understand that the COVID-19 pandemic has pushed more people away from the profession of driving, but a bus driver shortage cannot continue to be the answer to parent and students' complaints regarding transportation. I realize that there's a bus driver shortage exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. It is now more severe than ever. But let me remind you, in a 2016 survey of school transportation professionals conducted by the National Association of Pupil Transportation, 87% of respondents reported that the bus driver shortage was a major problem. 70% said it was getting worse. In 2021, 51% of respondents described their driver shortage as severe or desperate. We have known about these shortages and issues for over 4 years. In my municipality, Bladensburg, parents have cried, calling me on the phone, sharing that they cannot manage. They are middle class workers who often work hourly wages, and to just leave their young child in elementary school at a bus stop, given the increased violence that we have in Prince George's County, they don't feel comfortable. I had a parent that spent $28 on a one-way trip to take her daughter to her school because the bus never showed up. And when I asked some Bladensburg residents that are unemployed, why aren't you trying to, go through the courses that get your CDL? I quote, "I can't be a bus driver and make only $13.50 an hour and work part-time hours. No, it's just not enough money." Recently, parents, students, and educators have shared with me the alarming realities. Students and parents are sharing with me that they've taken taxis, Ubers, and Lyfts. That is not safe. We don't know if those people are fingerprinted in background. I too am a parent. I have 4 boys. 3 of my boys take public PG public school transportation. And I think 2 of them have submitted videos for their perspectives because I'm teaching them to be young kings and young leaders. I would like to urge you 4 things. a robust hiring and marketing campaign to inform parents of the correct rates of pay and benefits. And please include the 27 municipalities in this robust plan for increased information as it relates to sign-on bonuses that's recommended, competitive starting full-time salaries. I urge you to contract with trusted private school transportation providers until the PG County Public School driver bus capacity is reached, and consider hub stops for schools to shorten the trips to and from to improve efficiency and reliability. The transportation call center is also a problem. It should be mapped into 311. I have called myself and there's nobody that answers. And then also, please consider board member Adam Stafford's suggestion of the free WMATA and the bus transportation during school hours, because our older youth can be able to take the public transportation, and that will reserve the PG County Public School buses for our younger youth. I plead with you because this is a very important issue right now in our community, given the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I gave you extra time since I know we didn't have any other speakers. So there's no other speakers there?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and I want to thank each and every speaker that spoke, especially, you know, the ones who made note to the email that was sent and that was sent to me by board member staff. But I just want to make note that Dr. Golson and I and WAC president have been working on that even behind, and I'm sure today's staff will be some of the things that we already have been working on that in the background. So just for you to know, the public, I mean, we hear you, we know it's a transportation problem with the budget committee, and we're gonna do everything we can use our funds, sure things are easier for the parents. But our staff, I just want to say that our CEO is doing the best she can, and she's doing a great job. Her and staff 24 hours behind the clock are working on trying to find the best solution to transport. And they're your most precious treasures. So we are working on, and we do hear you guys. I know my internet is a little stable, and I do apologize to the public if I happen to go out, but my vice, because I am in Atlanta, but my vice chair is on. So if I do happen to go out, then he's just gonna have to continue to run the meeting. But at this time, we're gonna go into discussion of the action items, which is discussion on the FY 2023 Operation Budget Community Priority Survey results. Ms. Berkeley, are you gonna pull the results up? You should be able to see these results on board docs. I just wanna first of all give thanks to staff, Ms. Berkeley and the staff, for the awesome job you have done on the survey. It's truly appreciated. Sometimes we take for granted that just because someone has a paying job, that they can take time and put the best, that they will do the best they can and put it in. I said, awesome job on the survey. So I want to give you kudos and let you know that you appreciate it. And I want to also take time for every parent or community members who took the time out to fill this survey out. We had almost 1,700 people who took the time out. I mean, each took less than 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. Was for you to have a say-so in the operation budget for 2023 of the education of your children. I always tell people, and I say all the time, whether you have kids in Prince George's County Public School or whether you have a child or not, it doesn't matter. A lot of you are taxpayers, and you need to be concerned about what's in your county. So I want to again say thank you to each and everyone who have taken the time to fill the survey. So as the survey is up now, as you see, 1,677 total participants. And again, that is an awesome number. It's truly appreciated for you taking your time out, have done your survey. But disappointed that 41% of you do not know who your board member is. You do not know what district you live in. We must work on that as a county. I tried to get on a county council agenda when we talk about redistricting, because so fixed, and I believe that may be why people don't know who district they are in and representatives. So we got to know what district, and so we get it to look at end. So as we go on, and I still want to thank you for filling.
Chair, we're having a very difficult time hearing you.
Yeah.
You've gone
Yeah, I think
completely out.
I think we might have lost her.
Yeah.
Board
You
Member
want me
Cruz
to
is
pick up
struggling.
Mr. Harris for this?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so this part of the survey,
Got cut off. Go ahead,
this,
So I'm not sure
go
if
ahead,
she,
Ms. Berkeley.
yeah, I was like, I'm not sure if the chair can hear us, but if you can't hear us, Madam Chair, try turning your video off and we'll let Ms. Berkeley proceed, and then we'll see if that helps with the bandwidth, as Dr. Fawcett pointed out a bit earlier.
Ms. Berkeley can still go ahead and do the survey.
yes, ma'am. Earlier, Board Member Queen was discussing she was disappointed in the results that 41% of the participants, the individuals that filled out the survey, were not aware of which district they live in. She said she was doing some work with the county council and some other people in the district to get that word out so that people can identify which district that they live in. Because part of the reason why Board Member Queen, Committee Chair Queen, wanted to do this survey was so that the board members, the elected officials, could speak directly to the priorities of their district, and they could do what they were voted in to do. So she was disappointed that a lot of the participants were unable to identify which district that they lived in. Moving on, the survey participant status here. The survey participants were asked to identify themselves based on the noted status criteria. They were allowed to identify in more than one area. So that's why if you add this all up, it's more than 1677. But a county resident could also have been an employee, a parent. So we did it that way. We just wanted you to know who was filling out the survey in all their roles that they play in the county. Moving on, the top 10 cumulative budget priorities are listed here. The first two were tied. There's maintenance/site improvements, and that was tied with virtual learning. The next, number 3 was upgrade of technology. Number 4 was expanding or improving curriculum and instruction. The next one was to hire more teachers. The next one was to COVID-related on-site safety, to put some money there. Followed up by special education, which was followed up by the capital improvement program, which was followed up by hiring more educational support staff, and lastly, smaller class sizes. I wanted to note that the 1677 survey participants provided a plethora of responses, over 26 responses in all, that were put into 25 priority categories, and the top 10 priorities were pulled from those responses. The majority of the participants each identified more than one priority in their feedback as well. That should be noted. So I also listed the top 5 budget priorities by district. So you have the district on the left and their top 5 priorities listed there. There's a little bit more information regarding the titles in here. So for example, since we're looking at District 1, the number 1 there was upgrading of technology. So they meant hardware and software. So that it's a little more information in this part of the survey. When they say maintenance and site improvements, they mean mitigating code violations, HVAC systems, upkeep, minor upgrades, and beautification. And when they say things like CIP, they're talking about new school construction, soccer fields, things that are directly under the purview of CIP. So you have the results there for all of the districts 1 through 9, and followed up by the folks that didn't know what their district were. We still wanted to hear what their priorities were. That is listed. And the folks that are non-county residents, but perhaps they are educators with our system, they work in our system, they participated as well. They gave their feedback, and their top 5 priorities are listed there. So all of this information is listed on board docs, and you can view it freely.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Berkeley. And what's going to happen in this week, I'm sending it out to each and every board member for the ones who represent you, and also the ones who were actually appointed. So when they make their decisions, they understand that these decisions really need to be, their choices really need to be around what the people need to be met, and what your suggestion is. So the next step is that this week we should, if we haven't already did, be sending something out to each and every board member for their top 3 priorities. And I will hope that their top 3 priorities are similar to what the survey has showed as being the priorities of our community, of our public, and of our county residents, our students, and the parents. So I think that's so very important as we are elected and appointed to serve, that we are making our decisions by the community. So again, I want to say thank you guys so to remind people that we are elected and appointed to serve the people. And if we're just in here doing what we want because we have one vote and one decision, it doesn't make any sense when we represent so many of you guys. And we just want to make sure that we're doing what we were elected and appointed to do, to be served. Then I did say is for each and every board member to have an opportunity to send in their top 3 priorities, and then we will come back. It will come back to this budget committee, and then we will decide what are the top 5 priorities. My internet is a little unstable again. And with the top 5 priorities, we will take and bring it in front of the whole board for them to decide to vote on for our 23 budgets. Thank you again so very much. We'll move right on. Let's see, what is the next?
Madam Queen, we have one question from Board Member Boozer.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Chair, I would like to request that raw data. I would like to see some of those responses and how they were sort of categorized, if that could also be provided to the board members. I would appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
And also just to thank you for this hard work, Ms. Berkeley, and whoever else assisted you. This is a very helpful presentation of the data, and I look forward to spending more time with it.
Thank you so very much. Again,
And
Board Member Stafford, I see has her hand up.
Yep.
If Boozer Struggle, are you finished, Board Member Struggle?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I also just
Board
wanted to, sorry. I also just wanted to applaud this committee for taking the time to really reach out to the community to see what input they wanted to add into your work this year. I definitely think that was just awesome. I don't know if I missed this, but my just only question was the information available in other languages? And if I missed that, I apologize.
Yes, ma'am. We released the survey in English, Spanish, and French.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to say again, this is great.
Okay, thank you for asking. We tried to do most of our language. I don't think we got Chinese yet, but we try to do most of our languages down. So thank you for asking that question, because we are a very diverse school system. Okay, at this time, if there's no other questions moving forward. So let's say, can we have a, wait a minute, hold up. What am I making? We need a motion on this?
You need a motion to pass it along to the full board.
Well,
Yeah.
unless you have a
Okay.
recommendation, if you're just giving them the information, if you don't have a recommendation attached to it, then you don't need a motion.
Yeah.
So do we just, I mean, as a board, I mean, yeah. They will be responsible boards to look at
Chair.
So Madam Chair, we can't hear you again. I think in my opinion, I think we're not making a recommendation at this time. I think we're just providing data as well as the raw data that Board Member Boozer Starler suggested. So I don't think we need a motion at this time. So I think we're okay to move on to 3.3. Yeah, sounds good. Okay. So while she logs back in, we'll move on to 3.3, which is the discussion of the Obaf committee report to the board. And that's coming up now.
I think the next one was the board priority survey. Committee Vice Chair.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yes, discussion. Yeah, I jumped to 3.3. We're on 3.2. Discussion of fiscal year 2023 operating budget board priority survey. And we're displaying that now. All righty.
It's basically the same thing that we've done in prior years. We're offering to the board members to participate. We send a Google Doc format, Google Forms, excuse me, format, where we allow you as board members to provide your input regarding the budget priorities. Pretty straightforward as it was in years past. So basic, your name, which board member is filling it out, what their priorities are. And we also ask specifically from the committee chairs of the 3 standing committees, if they have any priorities based off the work that their committees are doing. That's the end of the survey.
Okay, and we're still trying to get that completed by, I think, October 8th. And that's displayed at the top of the survey, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we'll make a note to make sure board members know about that as well. And since we are taking a recommendation to get this across, we do need a motion to approve this.
Yes, sir.
But
Fortunately, I don't think you have a
I see
quorum.
Oh, Dr. Miller.
here.
Yeah, Dr. Miller's here. I see Miss Queen, Chair Queen is back as well. I'm not sure if either of them have audio, but
well, what are you voting on? I apologize. What are you voting on?
Yeah, sure.
I
Yeah,
didn't
so
think you were still having a meeting because that's why I didn't think you were going to have the meeting because you were on travel, board member Queen.
so no problem, Dr. Miller. Chairman Miller, I can
well, you guys, it doesn't matter what I'm doing.
Well, it doesn't matter. I can't understand you. I can't hear you. Can you hear her, Mr. Harris?
No, she's going in and out. She's going in and out a bit.
Yeah.
So Chair Queen, I'll explain to Dr. Miller what's happening here. So Dr. Miller, we're on 3.2 of the agenda on board docs. We're discussing the FY 2023 operating budget board priority survey, which is basically a survey that just highlights board priorities, specifically as it relates to budget. And we'll have a special note in there too for committee chairs, the standing committee chairs to note their priorities as well. So it's just a simple survey that we plan to get filled out by October 8th and submit back to this committee, and then we'll move forward from there. So the motion is to just accept the recommendation that the board completes the survey. It's a 3-question survey. Or two questions.
A survey for board members to complete.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep. So any other questions on that? Do you need Ms. Berkeley to display it again for you?
She can send it to me.
Okay, sounds good. So if there's no other questions, can I have a motion to approve the fiscal year 2023 operating budget board priority survey?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, the motion passes. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to section 3.3, discussion of the Obaf committee report to the board. I'll ask Ms. Berkeley to display that.
Doing it right now, just a second.
Yep, take your time.
There we go. This is just a quick overview of what we have to annually as a committee present to the board, full board, our charge, as well as introduce any new, just standing committee membership. And so this is the overview of the standing committee charge for the Operations, Budget, and Fiscal Affairs Committee. The general charge, and then following that, I'm sorry, that was a part of 8100. Then here's the general charge of the specific OBFA committee. After that, Ms. Queen can introduce the OBFA committee membership, and that's basically the full report as noted in 8100. That's all they ask for us to do. September, the Fiscal Affairs and Budget Committee, that's introduction of committee members and committee charge, and that's listed here. And she can introduce you all at that meeting. That is all.
Okay, so that's just our standard committee report that we submit every year.
Yes, well, annually.
Annually. We don't need a motion to pass that. We're just, or not to pass anything. It's just for the good of the committee.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
All right. Another thing in 3.3, I think this is when we were giving a moment to Miss Adam Stafford, Board Member Adam
Yes.
Stafford. This 3.3.
Yes. let me
Okay, so
move this out of the way.
well, I guess before we move on to that, any questions on the committee report from the board or staff before we move on? Okay, hearing nothing, I'm gonna turn the floor over to my colleague, Board Member Adam Stafford.
Hi, yes, thank you all so much for allowing me to come to this meeting. I just wanted to come and raise some of the concerns that I know we all are hearing from so many community members about transportation, and just in hopes of having a conversation of how we can possibly leverage some of the local resources that we have here to possibly support the administration in the work that they're doing. And so I did write a letter. I won't go through reading the entire letter, but there are just a few questions that I wanted to raise and hope that we can have a discussion around. So I wanted to see how the administration had engaged WMATA in providing free transportation for middle and high school students. I know that in neighboring jurisdictions in Washington, D.C., and in Montgomery County, this is a common practice. And so I think that I'd love to hear how we have engaged this group, or what would be necessary from the board to support and facilitate that in the future. Additionally, I wanted to see if we have engaged the county council in leveraging some of our resources with the bus system. So we have the advantage of having both Metro and the bus system here in our county, and sort of how are we using both of those in tandem to alleviate some of the pressure on the school system. How have we explored the use of some possible state resources through the use of the National Guard to potentially serve as drivers? I know that that's happening in other states, and I don't know if that is something that maybe you have heard or considered, or if there have been some state outreach around that possibly. And I know that we have a large faith community here where there are many churches that have fleets of buses, and someone in those church drives those buses, and I wondered if we had engaged the local faith community in possibly supporting us and identifying drivers within their congregations.
Hey, Board Member
Additionally,
Staff. Hey, Board Member
yeah,
Stafford. Can I make a suggestion? If you're
sure,
asking
sure.
if you're asking staff specific questions, like line by line, maybe we should
Okay.
go question by question. That way, it's not just one block of answers.
One
If that
big
makes
question.
sense.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know how much time I had, or if I didn't know. So I just was like, let me just ask and we could have a conversation. Okay. So I guess the first question was about WMATA.
So, Board Member Adam Stafford, we have Dr. Rudy Saunders, who's the Director of Transportation on the meeting tonight, but I can kind of lead off a little bit in terms of our engagement thus far with WMATA and the bus. So we've actually directly engaged the county with the bus in terms of them. Our students are allowed to ride the bus for free. What the bus has shared with us are their current routes and how those routes run in terms of a daily basis, where those stops are. What they are not able to do is actually run routes as we run routes, which are, particularly for students to certain schools. So we have to kind of make adjustments for our students. We have to make adjustments for those stops that are previously in existence and the routes previously how they run. So we have some schools that can take advantage of it, some schools who cannot, just simply by where the bus runs currently. But that is an option, and that's an option that we've put out to our parents in the past. That's something that's been ongoing and steady for years. Years ago, and I can't put my finger on when, our students in Prince George's County were able to ride the WMATA buses for free, the Metro buses for free also. And at that particular time, there was some sort of partnership or grant where the state was actually, because of the funding that the state gives to WMATA, was putting up money for that to occur. To my knowledge, I'm not aware that Montgomery County students can ride WMATA for free. If they are, then I would obviously think that we would be able to do that, but we have not engaged them directly this year. We did in 2019, because as you know, we had a transportation task force. WMATA and the bus have representatives on that committee who actually give an input. So this is not the first time we would have looked at how WMATA or the bus can support us. So we've done that, and we're welcome. We're open to, to any concessions that they're willing to make, in terms of how they can support us. But, definitely the bus has been very cooperative and actually sharing information with us down to, route times, where they run along our school routes and so forth. So, we'll do our best to get that word out. I do believe that we have some communication that went out to parents today, which actually spoke to the opportunity to ride the bus for free. Just a reminder again. But that's something that's been ongoing throughout the years. That a school idea.
So just so that
I'm just asking Dr. Saunders, do you have anything to add to that?
Okay, sorry.
I'm sorry. No, I think you fairly accurately captured most of what I was going to say as far as what's going on. And you're correct that right now, WMATA has not extended that offer that I'm familiar with for our students to ride for free. And just in terms of what we've done, we have done an overlay of the existing routes. And we'd actually done this about 4 years ago for both WMATA and the bus. The majority of those routes are designed for commuters to go from wherever they live in Prince George's County towards Washington, D.C. in most cases. They really aren't running cross county rather in most cases to get from homes to schools. So we really didn't see where there would be a major benefit in most cases, but certainly we're continuing to look at that to see any way that we can offer that to parents as some relief, particularly during the current bus shortage.
And let me, before you, let me also say from the meeting last night that I had with the president of the NAACP and Dr. Gosen, to get WMATA, I think is something to do with federal funds and it wouldn't come through the school system. I thought, is that not another reason why it's hard for our students to get on the bus, the regular Metro, than it is for the bus? The bus is a county owned. So we can make changes and make agreement with the county, but Metro is federally owned. And so that is a little different. And so that's another step that we have to go to, and staff has been looking into, but it's not nothing we have done. I've actually sent the email to Delegate Bonds and the delegation and asked for them to also, how can they help for us to be able to get some funds or whatever needs to be done to get that done, to get that partnership with Metro.
Yes, I was actually that was my next question in terms of funding. So just so that I'm clear, you're saying that in the past, the state put up the funding for students to ride WMATA for free. That was in the past, or there was like a grant?
I believe that's what it was something that was done through state.
So I'm wondering, so with some of the funding that's coming through ARP, can some of that funding be used towards transportation, either in the form of, subsidizing the ridership costs, or even providing bus drivers with some type of pay increase?
Board Member Stafford, I do know that this your letter actually is posted on board docs, and I do know that Dr. Ghost and her staff are looking into every possible. I've also heard that they have restrictions on certain funds that they can only do certain things with, in a discussion as the budget committee chair that we have actually been talking about. So some things can't come from our funds; they have to come from other funds. I do know that our CEO and her staff have been working on it for direct. I'm not sure if she can. We had our Michael, are you on here?
Yes,
Can
I'm
that
here.
be done?
So under the ARP funds, not for the salary piece of this, to actually change the salary. I'm not sure. I haven't heard the discussion about subsidizing rider fees, like if we were going to pay WMATA fees. I would have to talk more internally with our team, though, to see if we would actually, as Dr. Saunders kind of outlined, if there is enough benefit as we overlay those routes to consider something like that. Then we would have to really check with our state and federal partners to see if that is something that would be allowable under these grant programs to potentially amend the grants. I can't tell you now for sure that whether or not that would be allowable. It's just not something I've heard discussed yet.
Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Hersman, for that response. I guess just in follow up to that, in thinking about what you were saying, Dr. Saunders, about the cross-county sort of movement of the buses. I know that I think PGCPS has explored a hub model in the past. And I was wondering if that could potentially be leveraged with, let's say, a partner like WMATA or the bus. I know, from my time teaching in DC, that was something that commonly happened, that the Metro bus came from a hub and went to specific schools in the area and then went back to the hub to reduce them going into the neighborhoods. And so is that something that's been explored, like in terms of using the bus or WMATA?
Dr. Saunders, you're on mute.
I'm sorry.
Ms. Adam Stafford, let me see if I can jump in and respond. I don't know if Dr. Saunders heard the entire question, but essentially the question was in terms of hub stops. Has this been something that we've explored with WMATA, the bus, I guess with ourselves, in terms of decreasing the number of stops and maybe just putting one stop on? That's actually what we did. That's one of the recommendations that came out of, and this is internally for us. That's one of the recommendations that came out of the Transportation Task Force, was to reduce the number of stops specifically in any one neighborhood, but also trying to make sure that we adequately looked at making sure the students weren't traveling for middle and high school students any more than 2 miles to get to a stop. It's similar to the walking distance rules that we have. So we actually have done that. We actually did that in terms of, to the best of the ability to make less stops instead of, and I'm just going to give an example out there. I don't want to throw anybody's neighborhood under the bus, but in the neighborhood such as like Beach Tree, which is very large, we used to have somewhere around 13, 14 stops in that neighborhood, Dr. Saunders, and we reduced it to 3 stops. In terms of, so the schools that service that neighborhood, they're now just 3 stops. So, and what came out of that was actually, because like everyone knows, we've always been short. Typically it's around 100 bus drivers. In the current climate, is closer to around 200. So we've always needed support from the community in terms of, making it easier to get, students to and from school. So the idea was to reduce the number of stops. Buses are able to move quicker and get to their following schools in a more timely fashion. So we've done that internally in terms of stops. I'm actually familiar with what you talk about also in DC in terms of WMATA, because I know that sometimes they have buses that are actually assigned to schools. So that bus will go to a stop, will pick up all students, not even any commuters, will pick up students for that school and then transfer them from school. And that's one thing that we were trying to explore, but that still requires us to have some sort of partnership with WMATA, which is primarily something which as I spoke to earlier, requires us to have state funds involved, or as Board Member Queen said, it could be state and federal mix. I'm not exactly sure what that is, but I'm quite sure that through this process that we will explore to see if that happens. I know that it's something that we couldn't do as a county ourselves. When we inquired a couple of years ago, it wasn't something that we could actually try to fund. And you have to remember the other thing, that in terms of supporting our work overall and being fiduciary responsible, if we can't eliminate routes, if we have to run those routes anyway and then provide support, it's almost like a double-edged sword. So where we're able to, if we were able to do something like WMATA, that would help us to eliminate routes. And if we could eliminate routes, that would of course allow us to provide better service. But it's not anything that we're able to do until we're able to establish some sort of partnership. I will say this though, and a lot of people don't know this, is that our bus and transportation system in the county and really Montgomery County, our neighbors, because we're one of the few districts who run our own transportation. We're actually larger than WMATA. People don't understand that, but we run almost twice as many buses as they do a day. So their support is gravely needed, and we stand open to any type of support that we're able to either arrange when all the political entities and bodies get together, financially. So we're open to whatever's going to help us get kids to school in a timely fashion and safely.
I think we can certainly help with the advocacy there. I think my colleagues and I can certainly help with that. I'll just go to my last question because I feel like we answered a lot of them here. And I know others probably have questions on transportation, but it was around raising the rate of pay for bus drivers. If I know, Mr. Herbstman, I think you just said that ARP funds couldn't be used for that specifically. But is there any other way that we could raise the rate of pay for bus drivers, even if it's to provide a one-time signing bonus?
So I'm not gonna step on your feet, CFO Hersman, but I can just tell you that in terms of some things that we've explored. So, I'm always going to be an advocate that, there are certain classes of employees in terms of, what they do for the system. They always deserve to have, increases in pay. And I definitely, Dr. Golson and this administration believes in that, evident by, what we've done over the last couple of years in terms of restoring steps and things of that nature. So we've done an analysis and we did it. And I'm always going to harken back to the Transportation Task Force because it wasn't that long ago. So we did an analysis of starting pay all the way through to ending pay. And in terms of our local area, we're very competitive. Are we the highest? No, I believe we're the second or third between like Montgomery and the surrounding counties of Anne Arundel. But we actually end, if our drivers have longevity with us, they actually have the potential to make more than any other surrounding district. And we can send you those statistics because we have those. So we are exploring right now, and I don't think I'm stepping out of line, but if I am, that we are exploring things such as sign-on bonuses to actually bring people on. We're exploring in the future, hopefully being able to, look at pay increases and incentives. However, we have to still remember that this is a nationwide issue. All you have to do is look at the news. All you have to do is look at the surrounding areas, Montgomery, Anne Arundel, Fairfax, everybody. As we said earlier, Massachusetts has brought in the National Guard, to drive buses, to drive in CDL buses. So I don't know if it's something you can throw money at and it's going to fix the problem. Obviously, if there's an increase, it always makes somebody look and say, hey, look, is there a better opportunity for me there? But, our overall goal somehow, and I think maybe we need to look at it nationally, the same way we need to look at teachers, right? We're in charge of our most precious commodity, our children, right? These bus drivers take care of our kids every day. So do they need to earn more? Yes. Do our teachers need to earn more? Yes. So this is something if it's a national issue, we also need to go from that end. Maybe it's something that we need to redirect our priorities and make these professions more attractive.
And if I can add one thing to Dr. Fawcett's comments about that, keeping in mind that because we run our own transportation, our employees are also school system employees. So we often get compared to some of our neighboring counties that contract. They pay a little more per hour because they aren't providing benefits. Like they aren't necessarily providing retirement and leave and those types of things to pay a little more per hour. So one of the reasons we believe our employees stay with us is because of that. They have the job security they have. So I use the example of the pandemic when we were out, when most school systems were out the past 18 months, we paid our employees the entire time. Most of them were not able to keep them whole. So it's really, you've got to kind of compare apples to apples on this to really have the conversation. So there's always going to be a few people that pay a little bit more, but you got to look at the whole package to really get a comparison of what we're doing to compete.
So I would just reiterate what both Dr. Fawcett and Dr. Saunders said. As we look at our comparisons, we are very, very competitive in the top ranges of the scale. We are still very competitive in the middle ranges. It's our starting where we're a little lower, though we do have among the best benefit packages, as Dr. Saunders said. We're continuing to explore all of the possible ways to address that lower end of the scale without disadvantaging the more experienced drivers. But I don't want to get too much into the details with the fear of negotiating publicly in what will be a negotiated agreement.
Okay, I'm assuming Madam Board Member Stafford is finished because she went off the camera right now. But thank you so very much. But I think it's been a concern from many parents, not many parents, but many constituents and people who applied for bus drivers about the starting salary. And I know you just said it also, Mr. Hurst, about the starting salary being so low. Because when we put the offer out there, we say 19 to 25, and then I hear some people saying, no, the 6-week training is 15 something. Can we explain that when we're offering 19 and then we're giving something else for training?
Yeah, I can jump in there, and that is because what we found, Board Member Queen, is you have to remember when we do paid training, most of those employees do not have a CDL yet. You know, they are typically have your, I believe it's a Class C license, the regular license that you now would carry. So during that class of 6 weeks, we do the paid training, and what we found in the past was because years ago, training was unpaid. And you couldn't have people who were trying to go from a regular license to a CDL license, not have any sort of income for those, 6 weeks that they were in the class. So even though they go through our class and we pay them in training, it doesn't guarantee that they're going to get the CDL. It's very highly likely that they will, but that is something they have to attain on their own in terms of, going, passing the test, doing all that thing. So we do have certain very rare situations, but we do have situations where people will go through the training and actually not become a certified CDL driver. So we do offer a different rate of pay while you're in training, while you do not have that CDL, as opposed to once that person gets that CDL and becomes a full-time driver. But it's a smooth transition. And our hopes in that is actually even motivation for them to get through the class, to pay attention, and to get that CDL as quickly as possible. Because once again, finishing the class is not guaranteed that they're going to get that license.
Thank you so very much, because I know that has been one of the questions that's been put out there. And thank you for addressing the issues. I know, as I stated, I was talking to Dr. Golston, a lot of these things are being worked on with transportation. I believe that's why the letter was sent out today. And as I stated, I'm in Atlanta. And when I turned the TV on in my hotel room today, the first thing I saw was the cab, Georgia, and their bus transportation issue. And I was like, oh God, it follows me right here to Georgia. So every school system is having their transportation issue, just like it was stated. I believe we're going to get through it. We just got to continue to work together, continue to send and ask for solution. No solution is a dumb solution, because we're going to get through it as we continue to think outside the box. I do know that Dr. Golston and her staff is working on a lot more, even than some of the things that Ms. Shayla, board member Stafford, has suggested she is already working on, but it's even a lot more that actually, after talking to her last night, that we're looking into other ways that getting MOUs and other organizations to help us so we can get it under control. But just remember, we can only do this together as a community. Again, I want to say as a board member and as a chair of the budget committee, I thank each and every parent that has taken the time out to drop your child off at school and pick it up. I know sometimes it has been crowded with the long lines, but it has been a helping, and we do truly appreciate it, because it's going to take us as a village to do this together. And we've done a great job of continuing to do it, even with some of the issues we have had with the buses not picking kids up or being late. But we will continue to get better as each day going until we can get it right. And we're going to have to get it right. Because as I stated, the first thing I stated when I was talking about this is because we are transporting some of the most precious jewels, and that's our children, and they are our future. So we will get it right. We will continue to work hard to make sure that we are getting it right. So if there's no more questions or concerns about that,
Madam Chair, we have two questions, Madam Chair. You mind if I go before you, Board Member Boozer?
Okay,
All
okay,
right,
go ahead, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. One quick question for Dr. Fawcett and Dr. Saunders. I know we've got a number of emails from concerned parents about Stop Finder, and specifically about geolocation and things of that nature. Can you speak quickly to the committee about what your staff is doing regarding that issue?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So Stop Finder, which is of course the app that parents download, also has a feature within it called Geo Alerts to let parents know when the bus is close to their stop, whether it's within, they can set it by distance or time to their home. We did not activate it for the first 2 weeks because obviously we are still trying to reconcile routes, and we didn't want to cause even more confusion as buses are switching. We are going to activate it so that they can begin to see it as early as Monday. But I caution that we are still changing routes. So, the app only knows the route as it's assigned. So, we're going to work each day to getting those more I'd say more in tune with what we're doing. But as we are taking routes that we don't have a driver for and kind of merging them with another bus or another route, there's going to be some differences in that. And we were trying to minimize that confusion, but they will be able to see that next week.
Thank you. Board Member Bruiser Struthers.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I don't know if we, Chair Queen, I just want to thank you for your report on how closely you're working with administration. I'm really glad to hear that as the interim as we have the chance for a more full report. I know this agenda only had the contents of the letter by Board Member Adams Stafford. So I guess point of order, I just want to know, is our next work session going to include a broader report where I would request that we look at the Transportation Task Force, I think it's 31 recommendations, and some of those big changes like the potential of changing bell schedule, and just get an update on the Transportation Task Force aligned with the realities of COVID, so that we can cover all aspects and be, just make sure that the public knows that we're having the full transportation conversation.
I think it's a great idea. I don't know.
I think I saw I think for all the correspondence we're receiving from our constituents, that would be the #1 topic for a work session that I think the public would like to see us have.
So,
One last thing, Madam Chair. Yeah, I was going to ask Board Member Bruiser Struthers, is that a motion?
I guess it was more point of order of just making sure, because we were staying in the confines of the contents of the letter for our discussion, because it wasn't, I just want to make sure we're sort of in compliance of public notice of a broader conversation. And I know I certainly have a lot of questions, but I don't feel like they'd be appropriate to go into, in the way we set the agenda this evening. So I believe Dr. Miller has heard our interest in that for a work session. I wasn't sure if she was able to chime in as well. I'm looking for point of order more than anything around how we proceed with more information to the public.
I concur with that, Board Member Bruiser Struther.
Thank you so much.
Okay, no motion is needed.
So, Madam Chair, in the sense of the letter, I would, if you are entertaining motions, I'd like to put a motion on the floor just to, I guess, receive a report from Dr. Saunders and Dr. Fawcett, just outline things we discussed today within the letter. Just a simple response to the letter and different questions that we have, so that we're able to share with constituents within the community. I think that might be beneficial. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be extensive. Just high level of what we discussed tonight and responses to the questions.
So, so you're going to make a motion to submit the request that was sent to the board chair to staff for staff to give us answers back, so we can post it.
Yeah, it's just a reply, just a motion for a reply to the letter and a report.
I don't.
I see a question from Dr. Miller.
I'm not understanding why we need to make a motion to publish anything. I'm not understanding the motion to publish. What we're discussing in this meeting is being documented anyway, and can be found on board docs. Am I correct?
It is on board doc. The meeting has been recorded. It is also published, but I think Ken, Board Member Harris made the motion and he can correct it. But if I'm understanding what he's saying is he wants the letter that was sent to me as chair to be sent to Dr. Gosen and staff as CEO for them to answer the questions, because I don't think some of the questions will be answered, and them to get back with us on that.
Yeah, and for clarification, like I said, it doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be extensive. It's just closing the loop on the letter. That's all.
So what I will do as chair, I don't think you really need to make a motion on that. As board chair, I'll take the responsibility and I would send it to our CEO, because as a board member, I could have done it, or board member staffer could have done it. We send it to the CEO, and you guys hear me say it all the time. That is the what, the questions are our what, and she will send back her answers. Her and staff will reply with the how, the answers to the question. So no motion is really needed, but I would, as chair, take the responsibility and get that to Dr. Gosen, and I will get the reply back and make sure each and every board member have a copy of it. Is it that we want the public to see it? I'm trying to figure out what's the difference, because we can have a copy of it and it could, I'm sure Dr. Gosen is going to be sending another letter out just like she did as transportation today. And maybe we can ask her somehow if she can outline some of them in her next letters, because it is more transportation letters that are coming out with a lot of transportation changes.
Definitely, and I appreciate you pushing that along. Again, it's just to streamline the knowledge that was addressed in the meeting, because a lot of people that didn't participate in the meeting probably won't watch the full meeting to see the results. So again, it's just a way to streamline it for constituents. I see your hand up, Ms. Berkeley.
I do have, and thank you for recognizing me. Just a point of order. So I'm also going to be putting this in the minutes, as well as noting this as follow-up to the administration as well, Mr. Harris, if that's okay. This will be noted as follow-up that you want a response to directly regarding Ms. Adams Stafford's transportation letter, as well as the discussion regarding transportation tonight. That will be noted in the minutes as well as the follow-up.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you for allowing me to come to the meeting. Thank you.
You are so very welcome. So that should handle what you are requesting, Vice Chair Harris, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So we're gonna move right on, you guys. So we're on what? Which number, Ms. Berkeley?
On
3.4, budget moment.
Okay. All right, so we on the 3.4 budget moment. This is when we have the summer school review. So who is doing this? Is this Mr. Coleman? I saw him on. Oh, okay. Mr. Herman Smith, you doing the review? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. For tonight's budget moment, we're asked to discuss the recently completed summer programs. At the end, I'm happy to answer any of the financial or grants questions, but if there are some more programmatic questions, we'll try to answer, but I might have to take them back to our academics and schools teams to get a written follow-up. Summer 2021 did look very different from previous summers in a few key ways, as we outlined on this overview. First, on the financial side, for most of the general funded summer programs from prior years, these were shifted in summer 2021 to a specific grant for this purpose. One of the American Rescue Plan Act grants, it's called the Summer Program Grant. And one good thing about this one is that the grant allowed for additional pay to teachers and other staff in programs that directly address student learning loss. So we're able to raise the hourly pay rate by 20% for all the employees working in those programs. On the programming side, most of the individual school programming was consolidated into larger system-wide programs. This year, summer school throughout the district was targeted towards students that demonstrated learning loss. At the secondary level, enrollment in credit courses was expanded. All in-person programs this year included transportation and meals. And in prior years, many of our summer programs charged a fee. Beginning last year in 2020 and continuing this year, all programs are free to students and families, and our intent is to continue that even beyond the pandemic. Overall offerings of concurrent and non-concurrent learning were greatly expanded for this particular summer. At all levels, a plethora of supports were available to students and families. Summer enrichment packets were available for all grades to continue learning throughout the summer. There were flexible, no-cost opportunities for acceleration, enrichment, intervention, credit recovery, and original credit programs. Specifically at the elementary level, using the digital explosion summer schedule, students had the opportunity to practice their skills in a structured way. Schedules were provided that outlined digital activities and tools for students to participate in daily, while allowing the students and families to design learning that best suited them. The summer acceleration program itself provided face-to-face supports for elementary school students in person. These are specifically for students that demonstrated learning loss in reading and mathematics. Additionally, Book Nook was available to elementary students. That Book Nook is the tutoring program that uses proven research-based tutoring methods for teaching struggling readers and writers. Multisensory lessons engage students to help them acquire and apply new skills by using multiple areas of the brain through that Book Nook program. Similarly, in middle school, students also had the digital explosion resources for flexible learning, and the middle school summer acceleration program provided virtual learning for middle school students who demonstrated learning loss in reading and math. At the high school level, the credit recovery and original credit virtual summer learning programs gave students an opportunity to earn original credit and recover failed credits towards fulfilling their graduation requirements. Students completed all of their courses online with regular instructional support provided by a certified teacher in that content area. Here you see additional description of the programs at each level. All of our pre-K and elementary students participated in person, and our secondary students were instructed virtually. In all, more than 25,000 students participated in our summer learning offerings. And we are currently still reviewing the evaluation results to appropriately determine the effectiveness of these summer programs. We'll have the data available for reporting in October. Finally, wanted to share some of the financial numbers. This chart shows the budget and projected expenditures for our major learning loss programs. Those are the ones that are funded through the that ARP summer grant. We spent approximately $8.7 million on these programs at combined at the elementary, middle, and high levels. That will leave approximately $2 million left in that grant that could help us with our enhancing our summer programming for next summer as well. And we'll be combining that with money from ESSER 3 to continue to have a wide range of different summer activities and programs available to our students. And with that, I'll turn it back to Chair Queen for questions from the committee.
Thank you so very much. Does any of the board members have any questions? I don't see any hands. No questions, no comments. So since no one seemed to have any questions, this is not so much about the summer programs. I'll be, I guess we would like to still get an update on actually what the summer program has done. Has it actually been a helping and learning process for our students? So when you get that, we can come back with that later on. It would be truly appreciated. But for the after school programs that have been cut off, and that I guess the after school and the evening programs mostly has been cut off, During the summer program, if we find that for some reason it was a big helping and so many people participate, can you tell us why we didn't continue with the after-school programming and the evening program services?
So I would have to discuss that one with our more broadly academics team and get back to you with.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Because I'm just thinking if the summer program had done such a great, and we have such great results, then maybe it was something we should have continued on with after school and evening, programs to continue that education. But we're still waiting for the results. So thank you so very much. Madam Chairwoman, you have a question?
No, I don't have a question, but it was complete silence when Mr. Hertzman completed his comprehensive report, which I thought was very thorough. And the fact that there weren't any questions, I'm sure, I perceived that you did such a great job that everyone understood what was reported. And I'd like to thank you.
Oh, thank you. And it's really all our academics and schools team, but thank you for that.
Thank you again so very much for that report. As we if there's no other question, comments, or concerns, we can just move right along. So Madam Chair, that was it with your comment? So at this time, we'll just go ahead to the 3.5, the CIP moment.
Good evening.
John, hold on one second. Good evening, Queen. I just want to actually introduce the CIP moment. This evening, we're actually going to start with the comprehensive maintenance plan, which is required by IAC to be delivered every year. Mr. Stefanelli, our Director of Building Services, is going to kind of lead into that and take you through a few slides just to bring the board up to speed in terms of how the comprehensive maintenance plan actually affects the CIP plan on a yearly basis, and how they work together to support our facilities growth and our maintenance program. Sam?
Good evening, everybody. I have a PowerPoint I'd like to share with you if possible.
Yes, you have sharing capabilities. Just click the green share screen button and you should.
Very good. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, share. Okay, this is our mission statement. The comprehensive maintenance plan is required under COMAR 14.390217. And this is a companion document that goes with the CIP. It basically lays out what the school system is doing to maintain our facilities. This year, the CIP, the IAC changed its format, and we didn't receive it until July 30th. That's why we are in the situation that we're in, because we had to develop this over August, and that's why we're presenting it now instead of we usually present this in August. Just to give you an overview, this is the maintenance department. We have operations, we have maintenance, and we have environmental services under our preview. This is our organizational chart, which will show how each department is staffed. We have a general budget of $73 million, and this is how it is separated within the departments. The Department of Plant Operations has $10 million, and the Environmental Office has $2 million. The rest of it is basically in our maintenance department. Give you an overview of contracted services that we currently have. Most of these are under compliance. We have our recycling service. That's a contract for picking up recycling, our HVAC preventative maintenance, athletic field maintenance, sprinklers, boilers, elevator testing, third-party elevator inspections. These are all under fire compliance. We have to service the grease traps in our kitchens, fire extinguisher replacement, and generator maintenance. I just wanted to give you an overview of how our workload is. over the last 4 years because of our aging buildings. Since 2014, we've had a steady increase in our workload. At our last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about what we did to prepare the facilities around COVID. And this is an outline of how our resources were affected by COVID preparations. Our plumbing, we spent about 12,000 hours for plumbing. We had $800,000 worth of plumbing contracted services, custodial preventative maintenance, our exhaust fans. We installed over, I think it's 90,000 MERV 13 filters, hand sanitizers. We purchased 3,000 air filters and for classrooms and 300 air filters for temporary buildings. Again, we provided bottled water to all the schools. Every student gets bottled water because we turned off our water fountains. We installed 95,000 MERV 13 filters in all our HVAC system. We disinfect over 19 million square feet of school space a day. In our last meeting, I told you that we treat every school as if it had a positive case every day. So that's the process that we take. And we purchased over 3,000 air purifiers and 300 air purifiers for our temporary buildings. We also purchased and deployed 400 electrostatic disinfecting machines and 50 ultraviolet disinfecting robots. The robots are used for special instances, and we use them in large spaces such as auditoriums and gymnasiums where we have a wide area that we need to disinfect, and we can do that now without using chemicals. Plant operations, we determined the amount of the supplies needed for the schools, and we made sure that all the supplies were given to the schools. We installed over 21 hand sanitizer dispensers. We provided 83,000 masks, 13,000 gallons of disinfectant, 4,300 cases of hand sanitizer, and over 100,000 latex gloves. Again, we developed a disinfecting procedure designed by the CDC to provide our custodians and supervisors with the training to do so. Installed our 13 MERV 13 filters, and we disinfected every school every day. During the pandemic, because of we only have one maintenance yard, so we had to work an AB shift. We lost over 199,000 labor hours in our maintenance department, which really increased our workload, the age of our work orders. But once our workforce returned, we got back to full capacity. We actually increased productivity, and our work orders dropped to a 2-year low. This is a chart that shows basically how our work orders, the blue line represents our work orders age day, and the red line is our workforce. So as our workforce was not available, the average days went up, and as our workforce came back, of course, our work went down to a 2-year low in March. We had time before the students returned to catch up on our workload. Although we had fewer work orders requested during the pandemic, the trend of rising work orders still continues. We also, of course, didn't have as much of a workforce during that time. And that is my presentation. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you so very much. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, Board Member Boozes.
Thank you so much, Chair Queen. I just want to thank you. Those final charts were really helpful to explain to school communities what's happening around maintenance and the catch up and everything that happened with staffing, because I think sometimes at times there are some thoughts like, well, if the buildings are empty, mostly empty until April, why more could have been achieved. And in some cases we've heard from CIP that's a yes, in some cases that is a no because of staffing and safety, COVID safety for staffing. So these charts are great, and I just want to thank you for that. I know I'll utilize them in my conversations with school communities and parent leaders. And thank you so much to you, Mr. Stefanelli, and your entire team for all that you've done to prepare our schools for reopening.
Thank you.
Mr. Stefanelli, can you please send me your presentation so that I can post it to board docs?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Is there any other board members that have any questions or concerns?
No question, Madam Chair. Just thank you for the presentation. And I know I've got a few contacts from different constituents and teachers and staff and things like that about maintaining the water in different school buildings and things of that nature. So I just urge parents and teachers who might be out there listening to keep an eye on the amount of water that we have and make sure you request if you need more before you are out. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. So I've had to address that issue with Dr. Golson on yesterday. Again, as we were talking, because on the second day of school, my grandbaby had asked for water and she was told she couldn't get it. And then I had a friend who did the same, and it shouldn't be. And we are aware of that. I've also heard that some schools were telling kids to bring their bottles. And I was like, come on, you guys, school hasn't even been in but a week. But no, we did figure out that maybe some schools may not have ordered enough, but we have plenty of water, and we need to use the water that we do have. It may take a while for teachers to understand that they can get cases of water, but we do have water, and we need to make sure that the water is being supplied to our scholars.
And I have to say, our original supply was we provided 2 bottles of water per student.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to revisit that in October to see how that is working, to see if we need to increase or decrease the amounts now that we actually have the students in the building and we are providing them with water. But
then that's 2 bottles of water a day.
2 16-ounce bottles of water per day, yes.
Per student, and I just want to reiterate that we do have in every facility at least 1 bottle fill station that has not been capped off. I know that's the filtered at the source. So those water fountains are filtered at the source. And if they do happen to bring their own bottle and they want more than those 2, they can actually refill it, and it's safe to refill the bottle. Because it doesn't require students to, to drink out of it or anything like that. They just refill their bottle. And there's at least, it's typically in the multi-purpose room, correct, Sam, in elementary school?
Yes, it's in the multi-purpose room in the elementary schools. And in the high schools, it should be in the gymnasium, the auditorium, if they have one, in the multi-purpose room. So there'd be 3 in a high school.
Thank you so very much. High school students and middle school students, I'm sure they definitely know how to get it. I'm more concerned, to be honest with you guys, about our elementary schools students who, sometimes are used to asking the teacher for permission, and some are a little scared. We just got to make sure that we have a supply. And then we also must remember that we still live in a society where we do still have a lot of students who parents may not be able to give them a bottle to bring in to put some water in, or when we still have a lot of kids that have no homes that may not have that. So I just want to make sure that we are providing water. Our kids, students, our scholars are wearing masks all day long. I'm sure that masks, even when they talking and not talking, is making their mouth dry. So we just want to make sure that we are providing them the water that is needed. So again, thank you so very much for addressing that. And also at this time, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It was an awesome presentation. It asked a lot of questions. As a person who walked these schools all the time and had a lot of maintenance issues in District 6, when I actually came on board, I am happy to say that about 60 to 70% of the issues really have been done and really great. I still have 30% of things that I really think that we have to work on as a school system. And that's just anything. And that's just something that's just going to take time for us to work on. I understand about the workload and how things are done. I just think it's just the way we do things. And I don't know who would this be a part of this moment or who would address that. But when it comes to painting our schools, I just think we have to do a better job of putting that on the schedule yearly, because it's not like when we talk about our homes, we can paint our homes every 5 years because we don't have the thousands of people, 2,000 or 400 to 500 coming in and out every day. But when you're talking about schools where you have thousands of kids, 400 to 500 coming out every day, the walls begin to crack and begin to peel. And as I stated to someone, I just use, for instance, part of my kitchen, a little crack has started getting in the wall. And of course, my granddaughter is 8. She's curious. The 8-year-old is curious. So when she see that crack, she's going to start peeling. And I'm sure that's what some of our students do. And then the pill get bigger and bigger. And we must realize at that age, we have to take care of our buildings and realize that the schools are going to have to be, when it comes to painting our schools, we're going to have to get them on a better schedule. Some of these schools have to be painted yearly or every other yearly. To put them on that paint schedule that we have them on is really not a good schedule. So I think that's one of the things that we really want to address, to make sure. And you'd be surprised, even an old house, if you paint it, it just make a difference. And that's some of the same thing with a maintenance in our school. We're doing a great job with the HVAC, with the buildings, the best we could do with the money we have. But I think some of the little things and just putting a little paint job on it will even make it a little better. So I just want to suggest that we look into that as a maintenance. Dr. Fawcett, looking into us just doing that just a little bit more. So you know how you drive outside of something, even a business, and all of a sudden they did a paint job and you be like, oh man, that look good. And that's how our scholars and our staff and the community will feel if we just do just a little bit more. And it could just be a paint job that makes a difference. So thank you guys again for the awesome job that you are doing in our school system.
And I have to say before I leave, the credit for the water program goes directly to Dr. Golson. We had the funding to make this happen. So it goes directly to her. So she should get the thanks for the water program.
Thank you so very much. As always, our CEO does an awesome job. And we definitely give her kudos, and we continue to give her kudos because, as a parent, that's one of the things I love about her being a parent. It's something that she knows she's experienced. And one thing I do know about her, she asks questions, and I'm sure she's talking to other students, other scholars and staff. And she just, people that may not realize, but one thing I have learned about Dr. Golson is that she listens, she watches, and she implement things. She doesn't just sit on it. She's not a person that's just going to do it right then and there because you tell her to do something, but she will go back and investigate, and she will think about the best way to do it. So again, I just want to thank our CEO for doing the marvelous job that she has been doing for our school system. Is there any other comments at this point before we move right along?
I just have one, not to belabor the water point, board member Queen, but I just want to, let you and the board members know and constituents know that although we have schools on a weekly delivery schedule for water, we've also made sure that we've stocked some water for emergency situations. So if schools somehow get in a situation where they didn't get enough or they feel like they get run out, all it takes is a phone call to their ID, their area coordinator, and we will get the water over to them immediately. So I'm harkening back to things like hand soap and hand sanitizer. Is we have a stock of it. So if there's an emergency situation, a phone call, and we'll get it to them anywhere in the county within 20, 30 minutes.
Okay. Before we move on, is this part of the CIP movement? Is this the report that something was sent in by board member Ahmed? Can we go ahead and discuss that? Because we did have a report that was sent in by one of our board members with her concerns with the CIP. And even though she was unable to attend the meeting, we want to make sure that we do address that. Did we share that concerns with staff?
I'll put that on the screen now.
Okay. Ms. Berkeley, can you, because it's kind of small on my screen right now.
I just made it larger. Can you not see it? Is it not large enough now? If it's not large enough, let me know, because I can increase it.
Okay, increase it. We don't need to see the board members' names, just don't move them out the way. There we go. Okay, can you see this, Dr. Fawcett?
Yes, ma'am. We can see it, and I don't know how you want us to address it specifically, but we can take in terms of her proposal, Dr. Matlock, Sean Matlock can address them point by point in terms of the administrative stance. I'm not exactly sure how you want to approach this.
That's fine. Mr. Matlock, if you can address them, we appreciate it.
Sure, certainly. So let's start with, we'll start at the top. Well, first off, let me say that the capital budget is fairly complex. It doesn't operate like a regular, like the operating budget does. And it has a lot of components that are influenced by changes at the state level and changes that go on throughout the process of putting together, getting the project out to bid and actually getting the final budget. So what we end up doing is that most of our budgets are sort of like a magnitude of projection. It's a projection of what we believe the budget will be. But this budget evolves in most cases over 7 to 10 years. We don't usually build a project faster than that in the traditional model unless there's something that's come up. And what ends up happening is we start to design, we do a feasibility study, we put together a projected budget. That budget then goes through all the processes and things like that. And by the time we actually get to the final budget, the actual budget, once bidding is concluded, it's many years later from the time we originally thought about it. So there's magnitude of scale, there's changes in the pricing at the state level, and there's changes in pricing of materials, and there's inflation, escalation costs. There's also, and a lot of times, a lot of design change that may happen during the course of, after engaging with the academic team, looking at the site and lots of things like that. So there are lots of changes that occur over the capital budget before we get a final actual budget, which really doesn't occur in earnest until we actually receive bids. And in most cases, the actual budget that we get for a project is lower than the projected budget. In most cases, that's the situation. So to start off with, let's start with the contingency fund. So there's a request to cap contingency fees at 2.5%. And the basis for that request is that that the state, that there was a 5% contingency typically on a project, and that the state had contributed 2.5% of that contingency budget. The law has changed for several years ago. And now the state does not participate at all in contingency funding at all. So all the contingency funding now comes from the county. And so we don't get that 2.5% match from the state. Thus, it'd be difficult to have a project with no contingencies, given the fact that we have about $3 billion of deferred maintenance. So when we peel open a wall or we start to work in a building, we often discover things that we did not anticipate. And as a result, we may have to spend some money to fix a problem. It happens quite often, not on every project. In fact, about 80% of our projects, we return the contingency or portions of the contingency unused. But in many of our projects where we have massive renovations, we do need that contingency because we encumber things like, just at Robert Goddard, as an example, we had drawings from WSSC that showed a water pipe of 6 inches, and that was metal. And we had bought all the materials and done all the designs to tie in to a 6-inch metal pipe. And when we finally got in there, we found out that wasn't a metal pipe, and it was 8 inches, and there was no record of when the change had occurred. So we had to go back. So we had to do a lot of redesign, a lot of discovery to find out what happened, and plus reorder materials to connect to that type of pipe because the materials we'd ordered to connect to it wouldn't work. So those are the types of things that happen, especially in buildings that have had a lot of things happen to them. And so that's the issue with the contingency. We would recommend that the contingency remain as it is, given the state of our buildings, the age of our buildings, and the deferred maintenance that we've had to incur on those buildings, and the fact that there is no longer a state contribution to contingency, as was stated in the letter. And then, so as far as, yes, ma'am.
Well, you get ready to move on past contingency?
Yes, ma'am. Do you want to have discussion?
Okay, but before you move on, let's discuss that. Mr. Harris, is that what you want to discuss?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Madlock, when it comes to contingency funds at the 5% mark, what happens if hypothetically you reach that 5% mark? Dealing with overruns and things like that on a contractual basis, is there a request to exceed that 5%?
If there's a request to exceed the budgeted amount of the budget, that means that would be result in what's called a change order. We provide a monthly report on those. Right now, I have the authority to go up to $250,000 over the budget on a change order. Because it's difficult our work occurs mostly in the summertime, and most of the time has to be done before we have a chance to go back to the board. But we do provide a report when we do change orders that are for increases in the budget, that there's a report that gets pushed out on a monthly basis to the board. That's how it's handled. We go back and we actually change the contract to increase the value when it goes over. And that does happen. It's not that it doesn't happen, it's a part of construction. And that's when we do it. But if we don't have to go over the budget, if we don't require a change order, we hit the contingency. And as long as we can keep it within the contingency, then it's just a budget adjustment that we make, but it's not a change to the contract.
So Mr. Madlock, just a clarifying question. If the change order collectively is over 250,000, what happens then?
Then it comes to the board. It has to go to the board.
Okay.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Are there any other questions on that section? Okay. So the next is the A&E fees. So there's a request to cap the A&E fees at 5%, arguing that the state recommended several years ago that it be capped at 6%. In fact, that is no longer the state's position. The state now is permitted to participate in A&E fees, and they've seen the rise in A&E fees based upon impacts of 2018 building codes and things like that. So they're now recommending 10%, which means that we're 3% under their current recommendation. So if the state were to pay for A&E fees themselves, they would contribute up to 10% of the total budget. So that's a market change from where they were before. And so the thing that we're trying to avoid, and you have to think of it in this way, what goes into the project is what comes out of the project. So if we hire, right now we pre-qualify most of our A&E, that's our architects and engineers, we pre-qualify them, and then we pick off that list. So most of the time when we go out to bid, we've gone to a group of people that we know have a track record of performance. They have a track record of doing what they need to do, and they can look at a project and determine based on its complexity what a fair amount of cost for services are, and we try to project that in the beginning. Usually our projections are around 5% for the basis, but sometimes they're a little higher. And one thing that we do, and this is something that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, we have a specific contract clause in our contracts that require architects to guarantee that if they have expenses, if there are changes to the contract that are related to design flaws, that they have to insure for that above 2%, and then they have to start picking up that cost and reimbursing for that cost. So it's a clause that we put in just a couple of years ago, but it usually requires them to go out and get additional insurance. So we are not actually at market. We're actually requesting more from our A&Es than we normally get. And then once the project's in construction, they have to sign off on all changes, and they may have to redesign the project if we should run into one of those contingency items. And so we try to leave enough in the budget so that our A&Es can be compensated without having to go to a change order every time we have a minor change or even a significant change if it needs to be to the original design. So there's a lot of things that are built into the A&E fee. And again, the state no longer is recommending 6%. They're now recommending 10%.
Thank you so very much. I know this is definitely a question and concerns, and as we're getting into the approval of our CIP, some of our board members are having concerns about this, and we're trying to make sure we address the concerns before we get to the major board meeting that we'll have. Mr. Harris, board member Harris, you have another question?
Yeah, sorry again. When did the state change it from 10 to 7? That's what you said?
No, they changed it from a few years ago, it was 6. Now it's 10.
Okay, they changed it from 6 to 10 a few years ago. Okay.
Yeah. No, actually recently, probably within the last year. And they now participate. Before they did not participate in design fees at all. Now they do. If we wanted to request design money, they would give it to us on big projects. So that takes me to the next question, which was the CMR, FF&E percentage. So the request was to drop the cap FF&E at 3% instead of at 7.5%. So FF&E is right now we pick up almost all the FF&E on all our projects out of our capital budget, but we don't buy it. So it's done by purchasing. All the contracts for furniture are already pre-qualified, pre-bid, and done. Most of the equipment that goes into the building is already on some sort of agreed purchasing requirement. So like the FF&E would include things like the smart boards on the walls. The cost for low voltage wiring is bid out to a specific bid well before it's included as an add-on. It's not part of the original construction cost. So a lot of these expenditures are already nailed down through competitive bidding outside our department. We don't do it. We don't go out and bid for chairs and desks and things like that. That's all done by the operating department. And it's all the equipment that's applied in a building is tied to the educational specification for each building. So the board approved an educational specification for each building, and MSDE approves that specification, and we buy furniture and equipment off our budget, but we don't actually buy it. We supply the budget to purchasing to fulfill those educational specifications. If we didn't pay for it, that money would then shift to the operating budget. And that you would have to pay for that same equipment and all that same furniture out of the operating budget. So, and it would be, and so what's happening right now is, right now that fund has been shifted over to us. We pay for it for all the projects that we're working on. But otherwise, it would come out of the operating budget for each one of those schools, which I think would be very difficult for those schools to come up with. So we wouldn't recommend making that change at this point. But movable FF&E and all that sort of things is a big item. It gets, again, it's going to be procured by the same group. You're going to have to spend the same amount on every school. It just depends on which budget it comes out of, whether it comes out of the operating budget, which is kind of fixed, or if it comes out of our capital budget, which has the ability to move up and down based on the size and configuration of the buildings that we're building. And so that's why it's in our budget. So any questions on that?
Sorry, question again. Did we skip over CMR?
Oh, no, we didn't. We did skip over. I didn't realize we skipped over CMR. I'll go back.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have any questions on movable FF&E?
No, I'm good on FF&E. Thank you.
Okay, so the question on CMR at risk was the cap, the general conditions at 4%. So CMR is not lowest bidder. So let's be clear about what it is. We don't. It's based on a proposal that has a lot of other characteristics in the contract other than the cost of the project. So someone could get the project even though they're not the lowest cost. Okay. The reason we do that is, one, lowest bidder is not right now. We don't usually get the lowest price by doing lowest bidder. Usually what happens is you get someone who comes in lowballs the price, and then tries to beat you up with scheduling and change order requirements. It's a nasty game. And a lot of the big and the most desirable contractors no longer play that game because it doesn't work for them from a business standpoint. So what ends up happening is most of the jurisdictions now are either going CMA or CMR. And CMR is based on a guaranteed maximum price contract where they agree that this is going to be the maximum price that you're going to pay for this building. And there are a lot of contingencies built in there to it that can go up and down. So the idea is to have a partner in the building of that where you both have an interest in keeping the costs as low as possible. However, a lot of that is also tied to the schedule, when you're going to get things built, how long it's going to take to do something. And we're usually CMR is reserved for major projects, major renovations, major new school construction. We don't just do it for like on small projects like a boiler replacement or a window replacement. That's not usually what we use it for. We use it for like a major renovation like we did at Central or a high school or a middle school or something like that. And so what ends up happening is sometimes you might get a lower overall general conditions by percentage, but the schedule may run long. So to give you an example, I might have contractor A come in with a proposal that says, I will get the project done in 24 months. And their general conditions could be, 6%, 7% because of mobilization costs. And contractor B could come in and say, my mobilization costs are by percentage are much lower, but they're out maybe 3 years to get the project done. So even though the percentages of the overall cost per year is a little lower, the length of time they're spending the money and the overall budget amount may be higher. And so it depends on the deal. And what we need is for us, and again, I don't like to use this term, but we need to be able to have the flexibility to allow the market to set the pricing so that we can get the best deal we can overall, not just on one component of the price. And usually what ends up happening is it's a competitive market. So people are competing, they're giving us those numbers. We're being able to evaluate the project on a proposal basis, not on just a pricing basis. And so since we're doing that, we're looking at things other than just the percentage of this portion of the budget to the remaining portions of the budget. It's just a component. And I think that we will be doing ourselves a disservice because what's going to end up happening, to be honest, is that people will see that and they'll gain it. They'll build other things into the contract in order to cover their administrative costs in another way. So, or they'll raise their overall CMR construction management fee, or it'll pop up somewhere, but they're going to make their administrative costs. And that's generally what your general conditions are addressing, are the administrative costs and the mobilization costs for addressing the budget. And so that's what we're dealing with. And that's why we don't recommend making a change. Right now, trying to arbitrarily nail down one area of the budget and then it's just going to pop up somewhere else. We really would like to see what it actually costs for them to do something so we can do an apples to apples comparison rather than some artificial one.
Thank you so very much. Next one.
So the administrative expenses. So what a lot of people don't know is that these are not just the recommendation or the request was to drop them from a total of cap of 8% to a cap of 2%. So these are not just project costs; these are the entire cost of running the Department of Capital Programs. So software costs, the cost of staffing, the cost of training, the cost of our plant operation, all of the administrative costs, legal costs, insurance, everything that it takes to run our capital program is in that 8%. We have no operating budget whatsoever. And what that does, it does two things. One, it alleviates a lot of the pressure on the operating budget, but it also makes the capital budget responsive to what it actually does. Now, in some years, if we don't spend a lot of money, that number is a little high. So the year before last, that number spiked because we hit the end of COVID. COVID hit us in the middle of what we were doing, and our expenditures went down. So the percentage of our overall cost per project went up for administration. But most years, our costs are around 5%, somewhere in that vicinity. What we need is the flexibility for those down years for us to be able to absorb some of those costs. Capping it at 2% might be what you would see in places where they don't fund the full administrative costs of the operation through their project costs, but we just expense it to our projects, which seems to be a more direct expenditure on what we're actually doing based on a per project basis. So we basically take our whole budget, and at the end of the year, they expense out our whole budget and they expense it against the amount of money that we spent on project. So the more work we do, the lower that cost is. The less work we're able to do, a little bit higher that cost is. But basically, that is your operating budget. If you have to go out and budget for that, otherwise it's going to go into a fixed budget on your operating side. And when that happens, you're going to be dealing with, you're not going to get a lot more money on your operating budget. They're not going to shift their capital expenditures, which are funded completely differently. They're direct bond funded for their capital expenditures over to the money that they use for operating. They're not going to shift it for a dollar for dollar basis. And then we'll be in the same situation that you have your maintenance department in, which is they're constantly running out of money because they can't absorb all the expenditures that they run into on a daily basis because they have a fixed number. Ours is based on what we spend. And so we're encouraged to do more projects, by the way it works, in order to lower our overall expenditures, but 2% is way too low. We could never operate the department and get all the work done that we need to do for 2%. We need to have the flexibility to go up, and also the flexibility to take on more expenditures. Some of the things that we do, it doesn't just affect our department. One of the things that we did, we had the flexibility to do, since we fund a lot of building services replacement projects, like boiler replacements and generator replacements, which are in-kind replacements, we were able to give them some additional project management services, but it was expensive to do. But we were able to apply that cost over those projects that they were doing and absorb it that way. So it's a very effective tool for us, which we can budget, and it takes a lot of burden off the operating budget.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Board Member Quinn.
I'm sorry, I muted the wrong thing. As I was stating, as you can see, what these amendments were brought by Board Member Ahmad, and it's the second time she has brought these amendments. It was brought in 2020, and the reason, as she stated, for these amendments is because she said the construction projects seem to keep going over and over. So for us to, as board members, to be fiscally responsible over the taxpayer dollars, we're looking at, yes, we understand staff is going out and doing this, but for the money, the cost of things to just keep going over and over and up, as board members, we have to do something. So, Mr. Mallock, I hear you saying
I'd like to
that,
address that. I would like to address that point specifically. So when our budgets go up, that is a function in a lot of cases of the state, not us. So every year, the state makes an adjustment to the per square foot cost for every project that they fund, right? They do a survey of the entire state. They come in, they do a per square foot budget thing, and then they do a new allocation. So when I get my documentation from the state, they will increase their 70% budget higher. Our budget is a 30% match. So we have to match their increase on the per square foot cost. And that's what we do. So we match their 70% with an increase on the 30%. That has nothing to do with what you actually end up paying. To give you an example, on William Wirt, we had a construction budget roughly around $65 million in the budget. Actually, a little bit more than that. But our bid costs, and when we came back in with the actual budget, that is a GMP budget, it was $62 million. So it was $3 million less than the projected budget. And so what I keep trying to point out is that what you see in the year-to-year increases that you see are basically projected budgets. They're not actual budgets. They're just what is allocated to that project based on the per square foot cost of the building at the time that the budget is adjusted. It goes up because the IEC has raised that number every year. In the last 3 years, they've raised it every year. And we have no choice but to match the budget. It's not the actual budget, because the actual budget doesn't happen until we actually spend the money. And we've not been over budget on most of our projects. Most of our projects, as I pointed out earlier, come in under budget. We usually return money on most of our budgets, and then use that to advance other projects along that are in that same budget category. We don't overspend on most of our projects. There are occasions when we do. It's regrettable, I know it is, but it's not what happens on the majority of our projects. The majority of our projects are under budget. About 80% of them are under budget. And what you do have is, though, on those projects that are not yet under contract, those projects that are not yet bid out, you do see an annual adjustment. And that annual adjustment is our responsibility, our response to the state's adjustment on their budget. It is not our individual increase. It's not even an increase in expenditures. It's just an increase in their projected cost. And that's why I say the capital budget's complicated. It's tied to a lot of different factors. It's not an operating budget. We don't come out and say, this is how much we're going to spend and then go spend it. That's not how our budget works.
I'm sorry, Board Member Boozer Struggle, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair Queen. Thank you so much, Mr. Matlock. I really appreciate it. I guess I have some comments that are both about the substance, but also about the process of how we got here. The first is, I don't know when you received this, but I didn't see it until yesterday morning. I certainly wouldn't have had the time to check all the references and resources, and I think a more proper method would have been to ask you all these questions that we just now have recorded, which I've heard you, tell us some of these answers in the past, and why things are how they are, and now we have recordings of these meetings. We could go back, but I think the process is a little out of order here, and I just want to say that to the chair, that I'm concerned about how this came to us with such short notice and administrative feedback, because there are quite a few details left out of this, and would not have left any board member in a position to be able to be ready for tonight to respond without Mr. Matlock being able to move so quickly. So I am concerned about that. And I just want to say, I want to thank you for once again going through some of these topics. I know that some felt familiar to me, and I, understood some of these changes, but you brought attention to some of the new changes related to the 2018 building codes that I was not aware of, and the operating budget. And I have to say that there are many people in this county concerned that we do not invest enough in our CIP department to the level of to have the full success that everyone would like to see, that it is once again considered an under-resourced department, and you explaining how we are actually so fiscally responsible that we have to have the project funds to even fund our own department. And I think that's a really important piece of information for everyone to understand. So I just thank you, and I guess most of my remarks are actually geared towards the chair about the process of how this came to us, and the fact that we would be asked to vote on something tonight.
Yeah, so the reason why it came to us, and I can address that, is because we are the budget committee. And this is part of the budget and us being fiscal responsibility. And one of the board members feel like, as part of the budget, as boards and as a board as a whole, because anytime we do anything as a whole, we are lacking being responsible when projects are being overspent on. And so it was sent to the budget committee for us to look at it, to find the answers and make sure whether we decide to vote on it and send it to the whole board to make that decision, or for us just to look at and say how, as the budget committee, we can make sure that these changes that have constantly been made over the years and money has been overspent as part of this Obaf committee going in this book, are we gonna make a decision to say, hey, this is no longer gonna be, we're gonna be more responsible and say, going forth, this will either be brought to the board as a whole to make this decision, or we can say, you know what, as you may have stated, or someone else say, you know what, everybody want buildings done, they want constructions done. A lot of our constituents, they don't care if they have to pay their tax dollars to get a brand new school, if they have to pay a little bit over for a better house, are they willing to do that? But we have to make that decision since we are the OBFA committee. So that's why I felt it was important for us to address it and decide as a committee whether this is something that we need to move forward. Because when we decide to be a part of this committee, we know that we have to be fiscal responsible. That's part of it. We're dealing with the operation and the budget of money. And decisions we make, we got to make sure that we're being responsible. So if it's something that we do need to send to the whole board, yeah. If it's something we say, you know what, we don't need to send this to the whole board. We heard the statement. It's something that right now we feel like as a committee, we're doing the right thing and the staff is doing the best they can, then that is just fine. So that was the reason why I accepted it.
I appreciate it. I do feel like it was not in keeping with the amount of time we have for something. And it is unusual for a board member to provide the research that then other board members now have to validate what we are seeing in there. And it just feels very out of order to me. And I just want to make that point for future experiences.
Right, and I'm glad you just make your point across, because you can see even the email that was sent earlier to me as the chair with the transportation. But I'm willing as a board member to answer any questions because we are the budget committee. If you have a question and you bring it to me as a budget chair, as a committee, if I'm able to address it, just like, and I see you, Madam Chair, I'm gonna call on you in a minute. And just like it was asked, even though my computer keeps going in and out, why did I not have the meeting counseled? I was elected and appointed to serve, and it doesn't matter where I'm at or what I'm doing. I'm gonna do my duty to the best if I can. I don't care if I have to use my computer, my phone, my daughter's computer. I'm gonna do my duty. And I was elected to serve, and I'm gonna try to do the best I can as I do it. So at this time, Madam Chair, Dr. Miller, you have a question.
Well, board member Boozer Strother, pretty much, I concur with her comment about us getting the comments from board member Ahmed. However, Mr. Matlock did give, he talked about cost overruns. He talked about what would have to come to the board and what his limit, his limits were in terms of approving any cost overruns. And I'm just not understanding the purpose of these questions at this point in time. I just believe that, yes, as a committee, that's something that we should discuss. And those questions should have been presented to administration for a presentation to us, because a lot of times there are things, as Mr. Matlock just explained to us today, there are some variables that we may not be aware of. And you can't just stop construction because there have been cost overruns. We have to look at what they are and how they can be accommodated. But again, I concur with what board member Boozer Strother said. And I think Mr. Matlock gave a very, very succinct presentation in terms of construction and cost, as well as cost estimates and et cetera. So I just wanted that to go on record.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chairwoman. I appreciate your comment. As I stated earlier, I have no problem, especially if it's going to keep our regular board meetings down. We're bringing it to a committee meeting for us to hear on anything that have to do with the budget committee. And I'm glad you did state that some things should be done a certain way. So as we have our retreat, these are some of the things that we can address in our retreat so other board members would know. So again, thank you guys so very much. Is there any other questions or concerns or? Okay, so if there's none at this time, so I just want to let you guys know that this was sent, if you guys can read it, to us to decide whether we would send this to the full board for on the 23rd or not. So I'm not sure if anybody wanted to make a motion to do that, but if not, we can just move on and we can just, I'm sorry, Board Member Harris.
Yeah, so Madam Queen, I was gonna say, for the sake of the amendments, I think it's I think it might be important just for the conversation to continue for the full board. So I'd like to make the motion to pass it along to the full board just for I'd like to make the motion to pass it on to the full board.
Okay.
Do you
No,
really need a motion to pass? Oh, excuse me, Madam Chair, I forgot to raise my hand. Let me raise my hand. Do we really need to take a motion to present information? Because if the information has already been, I just received it the other day. I haven't had a chance to process it either. So if the information is already there, it's incumbent upon the chair to determine, well, this needs to we need to make sure all the board members have received it, read it, and then if they have questions, because some of the things in this are the questions that were being asked in this letter could have been asked at our CIP or should have been asked to be addressed at our last CIP meeting. But nonetheless, they're here. And so I just don't see where we need a motion. I just think that we can all concur that all the board members have a copy of it, and any comments there, they can, send back to the committee.
I'd like to second Board Member Harris's motion, Madam Chairwoman Queen.
Thank you so very much, Board Member Murray. So the motion has been first and it has been second. Any other questions? I heard Madam Chairwoman who said it doesn't have to be a motion made to go because all of seats, but I think for some reason, I think anything that we bring from a committee a motion have to be made to send it to the full board. And I think from what I have heard in the past, that is the proper procedure. So if there's no other questions, we're gonna make a vote on this motion. All in favor, say aye.
Point of clarification, I have clarification, please. So are you voting to accept the recommendations so that the board can accept these recommendations? Or are you just voting to just send the recommendations to the board?
But I didn't make the motion, so.
My understanding, and Mr. Harris can clarify, this is the board member Miller. My understanding was that he wanted the document to be sent to the board for review.
Okay. Just send to the board for, okay, thank you. If that's what Mr. I'm sorry, Mr.
He said, let him explain.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm the motion I have on the floor is to accept the recommendation to pass it along to the full board for review through the OBFA committee.
Well, we haven't had an opportunity to really digest all of that information. Now, I can't speak for you. I can speak for myself, but that's not what you initially said, Board Member Harris. You initially indicated, and we'll play the tape back if necessary. You indicated that the information needs to be sent to the full board for review, not to accept recommendations.
I think he kind of added both of them in there just now. He's saying send the recommendations to the full board for review. He did say for review.
Yes, that's what he said initially. Now
no,
he
just
said
so I said send it to the board for review because, and just like you said, Dr. Miller, you don't really need a motion to pass along the document to the full board, but in order for it to be considered by the full board, you do have to pass it through the OBFA committee as a recommendation. So
but we're not recommending it yet. That's my question.
No, that's
Harris. We're not recommending it yet.
Well, that's what we're voting on.
Yeah, that's the vote.
No, I'm not understanding. Board Member Murray, may I finish my statement? I'm
Of
not
course.
clear on Board Member Harris's motion, because in one sense, he's saying that the Obaf committee is recommending approval. Well, I won't say approval, recommending this letter for the board to take action. That's what I'm hearing. As opposed to, as I indicated before, when I understood him to say, we will pass this information to the board for review to send back to the committee once, and we can further discuss it and then make a recommendation to the board for approval. But
Well,
that's
Dr.
not,
Miller, the next OBAFA committee meeting isn't until after the CIP meeting at the full board.
well, you can ask for a special meeting if you need to, if need be. Or I will call one for you, so you won't have to get 5 signatures. I mean, I just want everybody to be aware of, what we're being asked to do. Board Member Chair, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Queen.
I'm still here. I'm just want the motion to be clear. So the first and the second, and we can move forward with the vote on the motion. So we need Mr. Harrison to state his motion again to be clear. And if Mr. Murray is second that emotion, we just move forward. I can't change the motion from what's already on the floor.
All right, so I'm recommending that the OBAFA committee accept the amendments. Yeah, that's it.
See, that's a whole different motion now. Madam Chair, I'll leave it alone.
Yeah, okay, so the motion that you're gonna state is that you're recommending that this is what I've heard, I don't know what she had is that you recommend that we send these recommendations to the full board for review the recommendations or whatever on the recommendation, or that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Mr. Murray, are you still seconding the motion? Board Member Murray?
Yes, Board Member Queen.
Okay, do you have it, Madam Secretary, Ms. Berkeley?
Yes, accept the CIP amendments to recommend to the full board.
Okay, can we do a roll call for the motion with the members of the lawful committee?
Sure. Ms. Queen?
I'm sorry, who you call?
Ms. Queen?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Harris?
Yes.
Ms. Boozer Strother?
No.
Dr. Miller?
No.
Mr. Murray?
Yes.
3 ayes, 2 nays.
Okay, so the motion passed, so we will just go ahead and put this recommendation to the full board for them to review and let them do the voting. Okay, so.
I have a question, one question.
Yes,
If
Mr.
the
Mallett.
motion, if the amendment is made, do you want me to amend all the budgets based on that motion, or do you want the, or?
No, we don't get to make that decision. It have to go to the full board for a vote.
No, what I'm saying is if it goes to the full board and it's
Not allowed.
passed,
We'll ask those questions when they're appropriate, not now.
I'm sorry.
Right, I don't get to decide that.
But Board Member Queen, what I understand Mr. Matlock asking, and please correct me, we're sending something to the board that Mr. Matlock indicated that there's some clarifications or some, there needs to be an addendum to what we're sending to the board. Am I correct, Mr. Matlock?
No, I'm just trying to determine whether or not it would be effective on this budget or future budgets. Because these
So
budgets have
what
already been
Mr. Madlock
established.
is saying, Madam Chair, for instance, if you have a household budget and your household budget is $500,000 for the year, and now you're making a change for that budget, if we vote once it goes to the full board for that change to be, does he need to make them changes? So on the 23rd, when we make that vote, that it has both sides, it has the old and the new. He's asking me that question. I can't answer that question. I would just suggest that you just like anybody else who does a budget, you just have two sides of a budget just in case. But like now we already know the way it's already set.
Okay, Madam Chair, is my hand still, I can't get to my hand raising.
Well, go ahead, Madam. Go ahead. I recognize you, Dr. Miller.
I'm just not clear because as a committee, we haven't had an opportunity to confirm all the information cited in the recommendation. Board Member Boozer Strother clearly stated that she hasn't had an opportunity to review it and make comments, you know, and then we've had a presentation by Mr. Matlock. So it's, I would just hate to recommend things that aren't fully true or that are I should say that are questionable rather than not true. So that appears what we are doing, though. We're sending information that has a lot of questions. So I hear your comment is that you can't answer the question, and that's something that would have to go to the full board anyway. So I'm just not clear on why we're sending something that we as a committee have not fully confirmed, but you've already voted to send it, so.
Well, yeah, I think what was stated by our vice chair, so we vote on this as a full board on the 23rd. And our next meeting is not till after the full board meeting. And so then what will happen is, Dr. Miller, and you know from what has happened in the past, it's still gonna somehow, when we come to vote for our CIP moment, it's gonna come up and we're still gonna be stuck there. Now we have the opportunity, each and every board member, because it has been brought to our committee, that each of us to go back and look at this and see or whatever. And Mr. Matlock, as you did state it, he did an excellent job of explaining it. All the other board members can go back and look at this and maybe they get the answer to some of their questions. But now it may not run out into our full board meeting as it normally does, because they have an opportunity to look at this and understand the answers to the questions. Whether we recommend it or not to the full board, in all honesty, these same questions could come up in our meeting because we still have to vote on it. So does that, do you get a little better clarification in it, Dr. Miller? Some reason we're not hearing you. Okay. She may be running a lot of technical difficulty, but I hope everybody understand a little bit of what I'm actually saying. As a board, the whole Prince George's County Public School Board will be going over the CIP on the 23rd. We will be voting as the full board on it. Whether it was brought to us today by board member Matt, she can still bring some of these same concerns up. Someone could still make a motion on that day for these things to be done. So it's best now that we had an opportunity beforehand to look at that. It was best now that Mr. Matlock had a great presentation that he was able to present to us. And not only us, even some of the constituents could go back and look at it. They have an opportunity to send emails and say to every board member, hey, I heard this, you know, staff have been doing a great job. Yes, this is right. The same way they send emails and everything else, they have an opportunity to do that and address some of the issues. So if there's no other questions or concerns, that vote has already passed. I believe that is it. So for the good, let's follow up in the next steps. For the good of order. For the good of order, we got through this meeting. I got through this meeting and still in my hotel room in Atlanta, but we got through this meeting even with the ups and downs, and my internet kept going in and out, but we did it. We got through the meeting. I just want to say thank you to each and every one, and you, especially the staff, Ms. Berkeley, for the awesome job you always do for staff, for the great job you have done in all of your presentations and answering all the questions, even the ones that was popped up, as said at the last minute. You guys, kudos as always. You guys have done a great job. Thank you to each and every board member, the ones who are not a part of the committee and the ones who are part, who took the time to participate. And most of all, I want to say thank you to the speakers that did the public comment, and to our community. Thank you guys for taking the time to stay with us and continue to stay with us as we have this wonderful ABACO committee on a Wednesday evening. Did anybody else have any other thing that they want to say for the good of the order? No, great things for the good of the order, that we made it through the first week and transportation getting better each and every day. Nobody else. CEO doing a great job. All these good things y'all can say. I'm gonna call on you, Dr. Coleman. Nothing for the good of the order. You know I can't let you go without saying that.
No worries. I'm just excited about the start to school. I know there have been some challenges that we're dealing with respect to transportation, with respect to responding to COVID. But we have children in schools and they're learning despite those challenges. And it's because of the work of our team. So I'm just excited about what this year is going to bring for our students.
Thank you, sir. I knew you would come, you would say something very positive. I appreciate you. Thank you so very much. They are our smart scholars. We're so proud of them at French Georges County Public Schools. And I always say that they are our precious and most treasured jewels. So at this time, if there's nothing else, I'm just going to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'm going to say, don't y'all speak at once. I need to go to Ruth Chris Steakhouse now. Okay, so it has been moved and properly second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Well, thank you again so very much. Everybody have a great and blessed evening. Be safe. Great meeting, everybody.